Well, good morning, everyone. We have a full program today, and I appreciate all of you coming a little bit earlier today to meet our president, Rabbi Stuart Paris, who is about to speak to you. And we're very, very grateful that he's here with us today. And we also have another guest coming later, and we have, of course, our keynote speaker today is Dr. Brenda Shoshana. So I welcome all of you. A lot of our mentors are on today, and I'm really happy to see everybody. So without further ado, I will introduce Rabbi Stuart Paris, our president and longtime student of Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, dedicated student. He's the head rabbi for the multi-faith campus in Brookville, Long Island, New York. And he works with Rabbi Scott Matus and some of our other alumni. So he'll tell you more about that. So please welcome Rabbi Stuart Paris.
Boker Tov, everybody. Namaste. I'm so happy to be here. I think by way of introduction, I'd like to introduce you first to Rabbi Gelberman. I had the good fortune of being very close to him and studying with him virtually every day for about a little bit more than 20 years. And I got many gifts from him. I'd like to share a few of them with you now, apropos of what Reverend Kathleen shared with us about prayer. This is how Rabbi Gelberman began every day. I want you to imagine a man who's about maybe 5'5", 5'6", with a little goatee, thin, with a very, very big spirit. You could see the light around him. Always in joy, always with a smile, always looking for the next beautiful thing to do for another person as well as himself. He actually started, believe it or not, this whole interfaith program that we're in now, the school, when he was 67 years old. So think about that and think about what you can do in your future. It's kind of remarkable. Here's how he would begin his day. He'd wake up in the morning as a young boy, a Hasidic boy. I experienced this as well. We're taught very, very young that when we go to sleep, the soul goes to heaven. It leaves our body. And some souls get sent back and some souls don't, because up in heaven there's a night court. The angels are conducting the night court. And they say to the soul, so soul, how are you today? Did you do good deeds? Were you kind? Were you compassionate? Were you good to your fellow human being? And as I said, some souls get sent back and some don't. And you can't see the difference until the eyes open and the spark of life is returned to the body. And with that in mind, there's a prayer that we recite first thing in the morning. As soon as we open our eyes, Rabbi used to say to me, this could be true, and you got to cover it. And the prayer is as follows. And he would start his day like this every day, opening his eyes. Modani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi, nishmati, nishmati, Bechem l'Rabba emunatecha selah, melech el elyon. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Ba'ed. The translation is, God, thank you, God, for restoring my soul to my body and giving me another day of life. Listen, O Israel. Listen, O humankind, all of God's children. The Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Blessed be the name of the Lord forever and ever. That's how he began every day. He would then go to the bathroom, he'd shave, he'd brush his teeth, do various things, look in the mirror, go not bad, like that. And then he would go back into his room and he'd get dressed. And being Hungarian and Hasidic, he would always be dressed fully. He always looked good. Constantly. I never saw him look frazzled or wrinkled in any way. He was always conscious of what he wore. And he would go back to the mirror and he would look at that mirror again and he would say, not bad. He had all kinds of pain. He had all kinds of things going on in his body, but not bad, just a reinforcement. He lived on the 19th floor, penthouse floor of an apartment building overlooking Central Park. He would then go out and look out the window, and he would say, Boker Tov, Ribono Shel Olam, Ma Nishma. Good morning, God. What's up? What's new? And he'd wait for the answer, and he'd wait. And he said every day he got the same answer because he was patient. God would say, Hakol Beseder, all is in order. All is in divine order. All is in my order. All you need to do is accept it and be my partner in the creation. And then he would go into his day with a smile and with joy. That's how he began every day. Can you imagine? I teach this actually to children especially, just to look out the window when they get up in the morning and say, thank you, God, for restoring my soul to my body and giving me another day of life. How bad can the day be if we begin it with thank you and God? And I have 12, 13, 14-year-old kids that really get this, and their lives have changed because they begin their day with gratitude and with God. So I encourage us all to do that. Take that into your repertoire. Just thank you, God, for restoring my soul to my body and giving me another day of life. Listen, O Israel. Listen, O humankind. The Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Rabbi used to say, Freud said the first 5 years forms a person's life. He believed the first 5 minutes of every day forms the mood of the day. And that's why he would start this way, those first 5 minutes. I think I said this, he would go back to that mirror again, and he would say, not bad. And he would be very excited with the way he looked and ready to go into the day. As I said, I had the good fortune to be his student for over 20 years. I was really blessed. I'll just give you a quick background on me, and then hopefully you guys will talk to me a little bit about you and ask questions, and we can be brothers and sisters in this endeavor of learning and higher consciousness. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the box of Judaism. I didn't know anything else. I went to, when I was 7 years old, I was put in Hebrew school. I was smitten by Judaism immediately. I fell in love with it. I became an assistant prayer leader called the Chazan. When I was 11 years old, I was conducting services. I learned to read Torah. By sight, I learned to read Haftorah, which are the two major readings that we have usually on Shabbat. I became a teacher when I was 12 of other students. And when I was 13, I was bar mitzvah and I graduated from this Hebrew school, and there was no place for me to go to continue. So I went to the rabbi, whose name was Rabbi Morris Margulies, who was studying at the time with Salo Baron at Columbia University for his own PhD. Salo Baron being a world-class historian, Jewish historian. And I said, Rabbi Margulies, I don't want this to end. Can you teach me? Can I continue? And together we began a Hebrew high school class. I recruited 6 other students. There were 7 of us. We met with Rabbi Margulies 6 hours a week, every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 6, and every Sunday from 10 to 12. And what I learned from him is what he was learning from Salo Baron as he was studying for his PhD. We used the same textbooks. We had the same teaching. I apologize for that, the phone. It was absolutely the most exhilarating experience of my own life. My mind woke up. And again, I fell in love all over again with Judaism. I went to Brandeis University. I was a very good athlete. I was heavily recruited. I chose Brandeis because it was a school where I could fulfill my academic desire to open my mind with curiosity, my athletic desire to be a ball player, and my ability to continue to live a Jewish life. I became the cantor of the synagogue. I became an All-American basketball player. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the 4th Hall of Fame in 1996. The most outstanding award that I won when I was in college, my thing is outstanding student athlete. It was a combination of academics and sports, and that was very, very important to me. In my junior year, I went abroad. I went to Israel, which was a dream. I was poor. I couldn't afford it. A man named Jacob Hyatt endowed a program. He sent over 18 American students. I was one of them, fortunately. I got to Jerusalem. Actually, I just have to tell you two stories about this experience. We went over by boat, 18 American students from all over the country. We went on the SS Jerusalem from New York Harbor to Haifa, across the Atlantic and down the Mediterranean. And I remember the night before, it was a 2-week cruise. And the night before we arrived, we danced and sang all night Israeli songs and met lots of people on the boat. And I met a couple that was older than I, and we became very, very, very close. And as we were coming into Haifa Harbor at sunrise, 2 weeks after beginning our cruise, I was standing next to my friend and his wife, my new friend and his wife. And suddenly his wife pointed and said, "There he is." And there were lots of small boats coming out to greet us, rowboats and motorboats and sailboats, and all sorts of little boats came out to greet us. And in one of those boats was this man's brother. This was 1962. He had not seen that brother since they were separated at the camps of World War II. They were being reunited for the first time. One brother went to Israel, the other brother came to America, and they were weeping. I was weeping. And I got off the boat, and I don't know why, I dropped to my knees, I kissed the ground, and I said, "I'm home." And I had the greatest 7 months of my life until that point. My soul opened, I learned Hebrew, I became fluent. I went to Ulpan for 6 months. I studied sociology and politics and history, and it was just a magnificent experience. And I came home desiring to go back. I met a beautiful Israeli girl. I thought we'd marry. I actually made a commitment to go back. A year and a half later, after I finished Brandeis, I returned. I also played basketball for the Israeli national team and a team called Hapoel Yerushalayim in the National League. And at that time, Israel was a little tiny country. So, and I'm big and I have red hair. So everybody kind of knew who I was wherever I went. I was like a Pied Piper and I loved it. I did a lot of work with young people. I coached, I taught. I went to the Hebrew University to study Bible and archaeology. When I returned again in 1964 after I graduated, I spent 2 years in Israel, and they were very formative years for me, really important years for me. When I came home, I decided I want to be a rabbi. So I went to the rabbi of my community in the conservative movement in Brooklyn. The rabbi who had been my teacher had gone on to a larger synagogue in Kansas City. We were a relatively small synagogue in Brooklyn. And I said, "I want to be a rabbi." And he said, "That's not a very good job. You should do something else because you can't make a difference." And unfortunately, this is a guy who couldn't make a difference. And I listened to him. And I went to graduate school. I started a business. I went to the professional world. I went to the American dream of more, bigger, better. And lost my way. I didn't lose my way Jewishly. I stayed very involved in synagogue work. I was a ritual chairman, an education chairman, just a member of a board in the synagogue. When I was 40 years old, I realized that my mind had gone to sleep. And I was very upset. And I decided to go back to school. And I had a client called the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, which is the school that ordains conservative rabbis, the school I was told not to go to by that rabbi. And I asked them to make a deal with me. I would give them my services for free, and they would allow me to be a student. And we agreed. And I did it for 10 years. And the first professor I met was named Simon Greenberg. He was the vice chancellor of the seminary. He was a philosopher. I studied philosophy with him. And I walk into this class, and I got to understand, my mind had been sleeping since graduate school. I didn't have any intellectual curiosity. I was busy, pursuing this American dream without reading anything of note or import. My mind was literally sleeping. So I walk into this class, first class with Rabbi Greenberg, and there were 4 of us in the class. Rabbi Greenberg, who could quote Proverbs, Psalms, Torah, and Abraham Lincoln. He said, anything that's perfect cannot be improved by adding or taking away, and Abraham Lincoln was like that. So he put him in a class with King David and King Solomon, which was interesting. And the other 2 students were PhD candidates. One had been to Yale, the other had been to Princeton, and they were looking for dual degrees, and they were much, much smarter than I. They were on the continuum of education. I was returning. And after about 3 weeks, we met every Friday for 2 hours. We'd read text on our own, and then we'd come and talk about what we learned and how to apply it in philosophy, basically. And I was totally overmatched. I was 40 years old, and my mind was literally not prepared for this. So I asked for an appointment with Rabbi Greenberg. I went to see him, and this was a pretty significant moment in my life. And I said to him, Rabbi Greenberg, I don't belong in this class. You're brilliant. You know all this stuff, you know, Lincoln included. And I love Lincoln as well, but not like him. And these two guys, and this was a man and a woman, are brilliant. And I just don't feel like I belong in this class. And he had my file in front of him, and he saw that I was 40 years old. And I told him my story, that I was just coming back. And he said to me, he called me Shmuel, Reb Shmuel, it's my Hebrew name. Reb Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva began when he was 40. You can't leave. You have to keep coming back. Not only that, but these smart people and I know a lot of information, but we don't know how to use it. You're the humanist in the class. What you share with us is how you apply Torah, Talmud, Lincoln, Psalms. You teach us how to go to the library. You teach us how to go to the museum. You teach us how to go to the Metropolitan Opera. That's more important than all the words that they know. You have to keep coming back. And I never left. I studied with him for 10 years. I stayed in the seminary for 10 years. I refused ordination a number of times. It felt very confining to me. I didn't know that my spirit was opening to all traditions. I didn't know yet because I was still in the box of Judaism. In any event, I ended my first marriage around that time, and I was living alone in Queens, and I encountered this extraordinary, beautiful woman who was glowing with spirituality in a meditation class, a Jewish meditation class. And I looked at her and I said, oh my God, I have to know that person. And it's a true story. She came up to me and she said to me, I know you. And I said to her, I know. And we became best friends. Her name is Reverend Enid Kessler. She is my wife today. We're together for 31 years, thankfully. She is my spiritual teacher. I didn't know anything but Judaism until I met Enid. Enid studied with Rabbi Gelberman in seminary and became an interfaith minister and taught me that there is much more to life than just the single box that I grew up in. She's a very big spirit. The first time I met Rabbi Gelberman is when I took her to meet him when she was about to enroll in seminary, and I took her to his front door. She had an appointment with him, 19th floor, Central Park West. And he comes to the door and he looks at her. He says, hello, darling, please come in. And he looks at me, he says, who are you? I said, I'm with her. He said, you can leave now, come back in an hour. And he dismissed me. And I was pretty upset, actually, but I left. I came back in an hour. She was glowing. She had books in her arms. She had a little lighted checkbook because she had paid for the program, and she was really excited. And then, lo and behold, that she's going through this program in comparative religion because she was an addiction counselor at Kennedy Airport, seeking to learn about other traditions.
They're out of their mind.
She was told it's an
ordination. They're out of their mind,
program.
right?
She had no idea. And then she became ordained, and she said, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And our daughter's best friend,
this poor lady's trying to smile and wave at the parade, right?
And said to Enid, you have to officiate at the wedding. And Enid said, I don't know what I'm doing. She said, I don't
giving
care,
her a hard
officiate. And lo and behold, she officiates. It was a tremendous success. I was introduced by the father of the bride, who's Jewish, the groom being Christian, as the rabbi's wife. That's how I was introduced. Martha Stewart was at the wedding. And it turned out that the bride worked for Martha Stewart, and the wedding was filmed for Martha Stewart television. And Enid wound up on television. She wound up in the Martha Stewart wedding book, and it was quite exciting for her. But it set
Wait. Say this again, Guru.
Really making a difference in people's lives, because now she could understand what people were like from different traditions, and she shared that with me. One of the highlights when she was studying for me was she studied the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox, an amazing book that I suggest you get.
And when is this?
And we studied it every night for about 3 weeks before going to bed.
Wednesday, 10 to 12.
And it was a revelation.
There's an Asian American open
I had no sense. I took one course when I was in seminary, which was Jews in the Age of Jesus. with Shaya Cohen, a brilliant historian.
Right.
I
It's
read the
almost
Apocrypha,
over.
I read the New Testament, but I read it as a Jewish person. Here I was reading the Sermon on the Mount as a human being, and I was really taken by it. And I said to her after she was ordained on my birthday in St. John the Divine, and I wept all the way through the service. I said to her, I think I need your teacher to be my teacher because Simon Greenberg
You
had
and
passed
coaches
away.
are going up there to meet.
And I was without a teacher.
Up in Albany?
And she agreed. And I called Rabbi Gelman. We met for 6 hours in his favorite restaurant called the Four Seasons, which was a diner on 97th Street in Central Park on Columbus Avenue. And I told him my story. He told me his story. And I said, I need you to be my teacher and my study partner. And I told him about my whole background, Simon Greenberg.
So this is tomorrow, Tuesday.
Little goatee, little tiny
Hungarian
you
and coaches are driving to Albany.
He said to me, I will accept you as a study partner and a student if you agree to become a rabbi. I said to him, I don't want to be a rabbi. I want to study with you. I want to be a partner. I want to learn from you. He said, I won't accept you unless you become a rabbi. I said, here's the deal. Where I got the chutzpah to do this, I had no idea. I said, I'll agree to become a rabbi, but you have to agree to remain my teacher.
I see.
Because my job, my goal
I have that one already, right? Did you see my
not
article?
to be a rabbi. I will accept ordination when you say I'm ready.
Okay. I think
I want you to continue teaching me. And for the next 20 years or so, we studied together every day, thankfully. It was an amazing experience. We would read primary text. Here's how he taught, and I encourage you to use this in your future. He would tell me we're going to talk about the Torah portion, or a psalm, or a proverb, or there's a wonderful book called Pirkei Avot, which is Ethics of the Fathers. I suggest strongly you get it for your library. Ethics of the Fathers. It is a book that talks about the early Talmud period and the teachings of the early rabbis. This is where Hillel said, if I am not for myself, what will be? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? That's where that comes from. It's called Pirkei Avot, or Ethics of the Fathers. It needs to be in your library. It's a very small little book, and read it. It's quite, it's extraordinary what these rabbis did. The beginning of the Talmud. And he would say, read this, and if something excites you, put a little sticky next to it.
One of which photos?
A little sticky. And if there's something you don't understand, put a little sticky next to that, and then we'll come together and talk. And sometimes you'll be the teacher and I'll be the student. Sometimes it'll be the other way around. And we did that for 20 years. And it was the most incredible experience in my life. I began seeing things that I never saw.
Those are nice pictures.
And he told me a story once that I want to repeat to you that's so important in our journey, our collective journey.
Say it again.
By the time he was 11 years old, he knew Torah by heart. He knew every word in Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible.
Oh, here you are at the
It's repeated every year. And he started learning when he was 3. So for 8 years, he heard it and he knew it by heart. Yet his father would test him every Saturday morning before they went to synagogue on the portion of the week. So one day at 11, he said to his father, Abba, you know I know this by heart. You don't have to keep testing me. It never changes. It's the same every year.
You know any of those people, or you met them?
You're right, but we change. And we see it differently. And it was a very big lesson, because learning is not static. Especially the kind of learning that we do, the spiritual learning that we do. We read something once, we read it a second time, it has a whole different meaning. So one story, we're sitting together one day, he's 95 years old. We've been together at this point about 15 years. And we're very, very, very close.
That's beautiful.
And we're reading a Torah portion about Joseph, where Joseph goes out into the fields.
And Prem went with you? I see all
the
those
eldest brother, Reuven, who's the oldest of the 12 brothers, is given the job by the father Jacob to watch over Joseph.
And you're right in the very front, right center. That's
the reading goes as follows. Joseph comes, the brothers put him in a pit. They want to kill him. Reuven intervenes, and they put Joseph in a pit. And then Reuven goes someplace. We don't know where.
They made you a special guest?
Someplace else. And he comes back.
That's very nice of them.
Joseph is not in the pit. It says Yosef and Nenu. Joseph wasn't there. Now, Joseph Gelberman is the person I'm sitting with, and he's 95 years
So
old.
they know you.
And as we're reading this, he starts to cry.
I see.
I mean,
Very
cry,
good.
really cry.
Very
It had happened
good.
to us a number of times, more me crying than him. But we were always respectful of that. We got quiet. I withdrew for a minute. I gave him safe space. We then went back to the study. We continued.
Except
And then when the food came, I said to him, "What was that about? What were you
What, the
seeing when you
Israeli?
saw Joseph Einenu?
Oh, it's
Joseph wasn't
complicated.
there." And I thought he was going to say to me, "I see my mortality." But he didn't say that. He said, "I was crying for Reuven, the brother, the eldest brother who was there to take care of his youngest brother on behalf of his father, and he let his father down."
I don't know if we met her.
And how
she's
sad
Indian,
must
right?
have been that he disappointed his father. And I was blown away. Blown away. He said he never saw that before. 95 years old, he had read this Torah portion for 92 years.
Of the two, even though she's Indian, she went to the Israeli parade.
That's all we had between us. I encourage you, as teachers, when you go out, a minister or a rabbi is a teacher. That's what we are.
I see.
I encourage you to take yourself out, be the best you that you can be open, be loving the way he was to me, and the way we are to one another. And they're encourage your students to question things and teach the way he taught. Let them read,
like 10, 12 blocks,
and then have a dialogue. It's not us standing up in front of people and talking at them. It's us sharing with them. And it's always sharing the interfaith and spiritual journey that we're on is a journey of the heart. The mind and the heart have to work together. That was Rabbi's constant teaching to us. The mind and the heart must be together. So you went
by yourself.
And one without the other, life can't work. But don't forget the heart. He initiated everything in the heart. His favorite saying was, "Today, whatever may annoy, the word for me is joy, just simple joy." This is a man that lost most of his family in the Holocaust, including his wife, his young daughter, his parents, and most of his siblings. There were 17 of them. And yet, he chose life and he chose joy.
I see.
I want to give you one teaching of his that I encourage you to use.
And so you may meet the governor possible?
Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism.
Most likely.
And I knew nothing about Kabbalah. Okay, when I was 19 years old, I was in Israel. And I went to Rabbi Margulies, that first rabbi's father, who was a great rabbi teacher in Israel, teaching Kabbalah. I was 19. I knocked on his door and I said, "Rabbi Margulies, I'm your son's student. I'm here to study with you. I like to learn Kabbalah." He shut the door in my face and he said, "Come back when you're 40." And he wouldn't teach me.
Very good.
He let me come in for meals, but he wouldn't teach me.
Good.
Well, when I met Rabbi Gelman, I began studying Kabbalah. And Rabbi Gelman saw the world very different as a Kabbalist. He sees the world as light. He sees each of us as light.
Okay.
God is light. And Kabbalistically, we believe that God was so much light in the beginning. You know, it said in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and God said, "Let there be light."
Yeah.
I have a question.
And she made.
Where did the light come from?
The day for New York was what?
I'm asking it rhetorically. The answer is God was the light. He didn't have to create it, or she didn't have to create it. God was the light. God is the light. Now, the light was so big, there was no room for us. It was too powerful. So Kabbalistically,
what day did they make it?
Isaac Luria, a great teacher of Rabbi Gelberman from many centuries ago.
The same day as the International Day.
Smaller.
Okay, that's
called. He made himself smaller so that we could have room to be God's partner. And what he did is he diminished some of that light and he put it in each of us.
Yeah.
So we each carry that light of God within us.
Well, I hope that
our job is to turn on that light every day and look for it in others and help them turn on their light with love, kindness, compassion, listening, joy. All right? And that way we unite our light with God's light and we wind up with Tikkun Olam, healing the world with that light that's united, our light that unites with God's light, because it's all the same light. So he taught this, and he also taught that a Kabbalist sees life differently. We normal people, non-Kabbalists, see life horizontally. How do
about
we
what
read?
you hope will be a
We
bill.
read across a page. Rabbi Gelbman saw life vertically. And I'll give you an example. He taught us that in order to understand the essence of something, you need to take it apart, look at its individual pieces, and put it back together. And this was a core teaching of his. And we'll talk about this over and over again, because this is something we need to take into our lives. At the very end of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, Moses is talking to us in this beautiful speech that he made, actually a song that he sings to us. And he says to us, I've given you all these gifts of teaching of God, and you have the other. Choose the gifts. And his words are, "Uvacharta b'chayim." Choose life. Choose life. The most cherished gift that we get from God is life. And Moses said, choose life. Uvacharta b'chayim. And Rabbi Gelbman contemplated, what does that mean? How do you choose life? And as a Kabbalist, he took the word life apart, separated it into its 4 letters. Now, again, we're vertical people. I want you to do this horizontally. Write L-I-F-E down the side of the page. Just do it now. L-I-F-E down the side of the page, vertically. And what he did then is he attributed a characteristic to each of those letters to understand what life is. Life is to be loving unconditionally.
Yeah, but the thing is that this bill is not partisan.
To be truly alive,
it wouldn't
to be inspiring unconditionally. Inspiring unconditionally. Life is
but
truly
it's
alive,
not partisan.
To be forgiving.
It's political, but not partisan.
How about that?
It's not like the Democrats
Forgiving
necessarily vote as a
unconditionally.
bloc. It's not like
And life, to be truly alive, is to be excited unconditionally. I'd pick him up on the 19th floor.
No, only
come
on,
down the elevator.
Only on
occasionally, I would carry him into my
called
car and
wedge
put him in my
issues.
car. I'm big,
Otherwise,
he's
they
little.
can vote.
And we go over
Like
to
they
our
voted
Four Seasons
together
to study. And you get in the elevator and people would meet him. Good
they
morning,
voted
Rabbi,
on
how are you today? And he'd then get ready now. Don't joke. Here's what he would do. He would say, I'm alive! With excitement. He would say, you know how I know? Because I hurt all over. I have pains all over. That reminds me that I'm alive.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, I'm fine, how are you? He said, I'm alive, screaming it. Anyway, take that with you. Choose life.
Right.
Use that, use those letters. Try to see life vertically. When you meet somebody or you have an experience or you see a word, just write it vertically and see if you can attribute some positive something to each letter. We do this in the Hebrew alphabet and Kabbalah all the time. I do it with children,
so you don't
with
have
their names.
Yeah.
And they're blown away. And that's how they see other people now. And I do it with positive words. I never use a negative word.
I see.
And that's how they see the world now. They see others vertically. They write their name down vertically, or they write the experience down vertically, and they look for what they gain, what's positive about it. That's Kabbalah. Very simple Kabbalah.
Because my window is open.
I was teaching a 13-year-old boy from
so
Russia.
You don't
was
have
David.
any.
Very, very bright. And I actually had him work with Rabbi as well. He was that smart. And he went to Stuyvesant, he went to MIT, and now he's a partner at Goldman Sachs. He's brilliant. And we were studying, and he kept saying to me, Rabbi Stuart, you talk about Kabbalah all the time. I want Kabbalah. I said, David, I can't give you Kabbalah. You'll go mad. When you're 40 years old, you come back to me.
I wonder about Kabbalah.
I have to have something. So I gave him this. I said, if you take something apart and you look at the individual components and then you put it back together, you can determine the essence of what it is. And that was the end of it. And I went to Rabbi Gelbman, and he said it was okay to do that, actually. It wasn't too much Kabbalah for a 13-year-old. And 2 weeks later, David came back to me and said to me, Rabbi Stuart, I know what Torah is. Torah being the first 5 books.
I see. And what department?
I said, tell me, David.
And what department?
He said, do you know the last letter of Torah? And thank goodness I did.
Very good.
The word is Yisrael, and the letter is Lamed, L. He said, do you know the first letter of
that's
Torah?
Your next goal.
And I did, and the word is Breshit, and
America and UN, and then United Nations.
He said, what happens if you put the Lamed and the Vet together?
UN already, United Nations already has a yoga day.
He said, the Torah is love. Everything else is commentary. This is from a 13-year-old. So I gave a little teaching, and what came back was a teaching for me. So I'd never heard that before. That the Torah is love, Lamed Vav.
Yeah.
Any event, the beauty of what we do as spiritual beings, because we're on a spiritual journey. That's what this interfaith is all about. That's why you're studying, I hope. I hope you find purpose.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
When this is all finished, or you found it already. When I was ordained, Rabbi Gilman and I used to talk all the time about the future. Again, I didn't want to be a rabbi, but after a little while, I bought into it. After 2 years, he deemed me worthy. I was anointed and ordained by him personally, which was, again, I went my way through that the way I did my wife's ordination at St. John the Divine. But he
I see.
had a way of
this is exciting. I hope that
a much lesser
meeting
mind
tomorrow
than his,
opens
a much lower soul than
some
his,
pathways
to his level.
for the next thing you want.
We studied at his level, and I didn't even know it. It was getting all
You're
over.
trying,
And he did it by inviting me to be his partner.
an education and training center.
Not necessarily be a
somewhere
student, but to
in
be
New
his
York
partner.
State,
We
right?
called ourselves Chavedim, is the word. That's how you study Talmud. You study with a partner. We were study partners. We were not teacher and student. And I encourage you to do that. I also encourage you to turn on your light every day. Use that basic prayer. Thank you, God, for restoring my soul to my body.
Everything's beginning to go.
Listen, O Israel. Listen, O humankind. The Lord our God, the Lord is one.
In New York.
Start with God. Start with gratitude.
That's where all the foundation is happening.
And know that you are the light. As ministers, you are the light.
Yeah, very good.
When I was about to be ordained, I said to Rabbi, because Rabbi, minister, means teacher. I said, who will I teach? I had no idea.
Let me know if you
said,
need anything.
they will find you. And boy, have they found me. So I encourage you to open your spirit, open your soul. You may have a plan now as to what you want to do following ordination. Go with that plan, but also be open to what life brings you, because they will find you. If you go out there with this spirit and an open heart, and all of these wonderful teachings from this extraordinary man, joy.
There's a ton of work that you do for this month. The yoga month is crazy.
If you go out with those
it's absolutely things, crazy. You made the month yourself, people. Right?
And those people will be like-minded to you. You will have a tremendous career. You will enjoy your ministry more than you can ever imagine. And you will make a real difference on the planet. Last message. Rabbi said that there were actually 11 commandments. God only wrote down 10. But here's the 11th and maybe the most important.
I mean,
thou shalt have purpose.
Meaning all that amount of work.
Seek your purpose as a minister. Seek your purpose as this high spiritual being who's about to go out into the world with this light of learning, this light of love, this light of joy that you've gotten. Kathleen tells me you're the best class ever. Well, there's something to that. Stay in touch with each other. Stay in touch with yourself.
Don't
lose yourself to the mundanity of life. Stay open to the opportunities that are constantly presenting themselves. And be aware that every student is a partner, not just a student. We learn from them and they learn from us. And by God, choose life. Be loving unconditionally. Inspiring unconditionally, forgiving unconditionally, and be excited unconditionally with everything that you do. And remember that this is a journey of the mind. They love doing stuff. I noticed that from If you can lead with the heart, the mind will follow. And that's what Rabbi Gilman was all about. And I was truly blessed to be his study partner for 20 years. The other thing I encourage you to do, you form some relationships this year. This being the best class ever, according to Reverend Kathleen. Keep those relationships going. Be a study partner for one another. The journey doesn't end when you're ordained. That's just the beginning. Share with each other.
I see.
Share spirituality. Share light.
That's
share
beautiful.
Stories. Share love. Share joy. Many years ago, Rabbi had this rabbinical seminar, and he'd asked me to be the dean.
Beautiful.
And we had a class very much like this class. And they stayed in touch with each other. It's been 25 years now, and they still communicate with each other regularly. And it's very valuable. They learn from each other, and I've watched them grow in the email chain that I see all the time. They're just, their light is expanding.
Yeah, but then they have summer.
So you're about to have a major transformation.
Say
in
it
your
again.
life. You don't know it yet, but when you're ordained,
and
I'm
then
sorry
the
that we
schools
can't.
have a little
I
summer
did the
thing
ordination with
they
John.
go in the morning, or then they
I
go
would anoint
play
you,
and
as
do
with John,
little
with
art
oil.
and things like that.
We can't do it this
I don't know
year. We're
about
not
the
coming
older
together,
kids,
but I want you to visualize it and imagine that as John and I touch your head and ordain you ministers, that the lights
All right.
go
Well,
off.
I'm going to get back to my labors here.
The fireworks.
Congratulations. Good luck
and your
tomorrow.
life is transformed
Tell
forever.
me whenever if you need
You
me
will
to
be
do
a
something.
gift.
Okay.
To all of
Thanks,
humankind.
Guruji. Yeah. Bye-bye.
And take it with you, and take us with you, and take one another with you. Know that we love you. We know you love us. And just keep it going. This legacy of Rabbi Gelderman, I mean, John was one of his first students. John had the good fortune to meet him 20 years before I did. I'm a little jealous. But I'll tell you what, we have that gift in us. That's what you've gotten from John. That's what you've gotten from Kathleen. That's what you get from Guruji. That's what I share with you. Brenda Shoshana was a wonderful student of Rabbi Gelderman. Larry, just keep it going. It's the most amazing thing. We really make a difference. Really make a difference. One day at a time. Choose life. Choose joy. Choose love. And remember, you are the light. God bless you all. Namaste.
Thank you so much.